一つだけ約束して。全部壊して。
In Call of Duty Mobile, SMGs are some of the most popular weapons in the game, right next to assault rifles. Their concept is quite simple, trading range and accuracy for better mobility and close-range lethality. This makes them the go-to pick for close-range encounters. While shotguns are generally more lethal, these are more extreme weapons that live and die in close quarters. SMGs have a bit more flexibility than that, as they're usually but not always viable at mid-range too. Currently, the VMP is the king of true SMGs, even going as far as redefining how competitive players approach certain game modes. But with the Season 2 balance changes this year, things are looking quite interesting, as one SMG in particular got a pretty substantial buff, and might actually give the VMP a run for its money, the SMG in question being the QQ9. This used to be one of the best SMGs in the game, but with the addition of newer weapons and constant balance changes, it has been pushed to the wayside. But now, thanks to the buff it has received, it is truly back from the dead. And that is because the QQ9 is the most powerful SMG. Here's why. But to understand why the QQ9 is so good now, it is important to know what exactly changed with the weapon. It has received a minor improvement to its base damage range, going up by an additional meter for its initial damage phase and 2 meters for its second and third damage phases. This is pretty small, although it is still quite welcome, especially when you take attachments into account. The more important buff here is that to the 10mm ammo conversion, which now increases the stomach multiplier from 1x to 1.1x. This doesn't sound like much until you realize that it greatly improves your 3-tap consistency. Previously, you needed at least 2 chest or lower arm shots to reliably 3-tap. This meant that while 3-tapping wasn't exactly impossible, it was still very inconsistent due to the strict requirements. But post-buff, you can now achieve a 3-tap as long as you land 1 shot to the chest or lower arms, assuming you don't hit a leg shot. This is way more achievable and means that its 3-tap potential can actually be relied on. Beyond this range, the increased stomach multiplier has the added effect of making shots to kill much more consistent, since it becomes much easier to negate the negative leg multiplier. Fun fact about the 10mm ammo conversion, by the way, this attachment adds a flat 2 extra damage to the first and second damage phases. But the damage boost does have a pretty funny interaction with the damage multipliers. This is because the extra damage is only applied after the base damage is multiplied. So let's just say you hit an enemy in the stomach up close. The game will calculate using the base damage, aka without the 10mm ammo, with the stomach multiplier, so that is 28 times 1.1, which equals to 30.8. It is then, and only then, that the plus 2 damage is applied, so your final damage per shot is 32.8, even though logically speaking it should be 33. This has no practical impact on the damage consistency, but it is still an interesting factoid. With the buffs out of the way, we can now talk about the weapon in depth. I shall mainly be comparing the QQ9 against the VMP, since it is the most popular SMG in the game right now. If you want more information on the weapon, I have a video covering the VMP in detail, but it is a pretty old video, so I can give a very quick summary of the weapon. You got that? Good. Although in this comparison, I will be using the standard comp build for the VMP, since that is what most people are using. Starting off with the lethality, the QQ9 features an insanely fast 3-tap time to kill of, I shit you not, 158 milliseconds. This is noticeably faster than the VMP's 186, and is in fact the fastest killing fully automatic SMG in the game. The fact that this weapon kills barely slower than the Odin while being way more forgiving is honestly quite scary. And before some of you guys go, maybe it has bad range. Because the QQ9's 3-tap range is surprisingly good, extending up to 18 meters, This is quite a bit longer than the VMP's initial range, which only extends up to 13 meters. Beyond this range, the QQ9 will consistently 4-tap for a time to kill of 238 milliseconds up to 27 meters, which is really good for what is supposed to be a close quarters SMG. The VMP can theoretically achieve a time to kill of 248 milliseconds up to 32.5 meters, but past 20 meters this isn't quite as consistent. So overall, the QQ9 has a significant advantage when it comes to time to kill. When it comes to the weapon's accuracy, the QQ9 also takes the edge. Its BSA is nearly identical to the VMP's. Obviously, this is not enough to challenge assault rifles, but given that you'll mainly be using this weapon in close to mid ranges, this doesn't really matter that much. What does matter though is the recoil. The pattern is very simple, being mostly vertical with a slight lean to the right. Combined with the fairly moderate kick, you will have a much easier time controlling it compared to the VMP, which has a bit of a zigzagging pattern. It is also worth taking the hipfire accuracy into account, since this is a weapon intended for closer ranges. A minor flaw that the VMP has is the fairly wide hipfire spread, which forces you to pretty much always ADS. For a close quarters SMG, this can be quite the inconvenience, as you'll primarily be playing super aggressively, and spending precious time aiming in can be the difference between you securing the kill and having to double tap to respawn. The QQ9 on the other hand features standard SMG hipfire spread, so you can get away with not aiming in at point blank range. But the VMP can partially make up for this with its insanely fast ADS time at 171 milliseconds. So despite being forced to always ADS, the ADS time is so fast that it isn't actually that bad. The QQ9s is still very competitive, but nowhere as fast at 206 milliseconds. This, however, doesn't negate the other con that the VMP has. If you're using the standard comp build, the VMP has a pretty slow sprint speed for a close quarters weapon at 6.18 meters per second. This is slower than even some assault rifles and means that you'll have to swap to your secondary when getting around the map. The QQ9 doesn't have this problem, sprinting noticeably faster at 6.65 meters per second. There are not that many SMGs that can sprint faster than this, so this is very impressive. Its ADS movement speed is also top tier at 4.27 meters per second compared to the VMP's 3.44. All of this combined allows the QQ9 to play very aggressively to make use of its 3-tap potential. Now all of this looks batshit insane because so far, the QQ9 looks better in almost every aspect except for the ADS time, and even then, it is still pretty fast. But there is a singular stat that keeps this weapon in check, that being the mag size. Since the 10mm mag is a mandatory attachment, you are forced to work with a 30-round mag. Considering the relatively fast fire rate, this is very small, and means that you'll find yourself reloading quite often. This is an aspect that the VMP fares way better. With its 52-round mag, it has way better sustainability, which allows you to take on a lot more gunfights and can even comfortably pre-fire while the QQ9 can't. This poor sustainability means that you can't be quite as ballsy with the QQ9, and you will have to play a bit more conservatively so you don't risk getting caught going, "I need more bullets! I need more bullets! I need more bullets! I need more bullets!" This makes sleight of hand a phenomenal attachment, as it helps you reduce your downtime as much as possible, since you will be reloading frequently. Vulture is also a god tier perk on this gun. Other than maintaining a reserve ammo and healing you, each Vulture pack reloads 6 shots into your mag, which is effectively 2 kills for the price of 1, which in turn reduces how often you need to reload in the first place. The other downside to take note of is the punishing leg damage multipliers. In the initial damage phase, landing just a single leg shot will instantly ruin your 3-tap potential. It doesn't matter if you land 2 chest or lower arm shots, your shots to kill is dropping to a 4-tap unless you get a headshot in the mix. Now, as previously mentioned, the 4-tap time to kill is not bad, but it does mean that its potential time to kill is not as forgiving as the VMP, which can compensate with upper body shots. So you will have to aim higher with the QQ9 than with the VMP. But even then, this is still not a foolproof strat. In super aggressive scenarios, it is not uncommon to land a leg shot, so you will occasionally 4-tap when you're expecting a 3-tap. So after all of that, some of you might be asking, is the QQ9 now better than the VMP? Well, it's complicated. Both weapons have their own unique advantages, and depending on what kind of player you are, you may prefer one over the other. The VMP features a much larger mag size and less punishing leg multipliers as its main upsides, along with a faster ADS time. For most players, you'll find that the VMP is the safer and more reliable option, as there's less risk of running out of ammo or dealing with a slower time to kill just because you got a single leg shot. The QQ9, on the other hand, is best described as the higher ceiling but lower floor option. When the weapon is performing at its best, aka you're getting those consistent 3 taps, its overall lethality is much better due to the faster potential time to kill. And this time to kill difference is nothing to scoff at. The only weapons that can compete with this are either 2-tap or burst weapons. But as we all know, these weapons heavily punish your time to kill if you miss. The QQ9 is much more forgiving in comparison, as its fire rate is very similar to that of the XM4s. So missed shots are much more forgiving, which directly translates to a more realistic time to kill. It also comes with better mobility, easier recoil, and a tighter hipfire spread. All of this combined makes for a very strong close quarters weapon that is near impossible to outgun, especially in the hands of a skilled player. This is not to say that it is a super difficult weapon to use, but novice players will have an easier time with the VMP. So overall, the QQ9 is easily a top tier aggressive weapon that is tied with the VMP in terms of viability. The build with the QQ9 is quite simple. Start with the 10mm 30 round reload. This is the mandatory attachment, as this is what gives us that 3-tap potential. Monolithic suppressor and RTC recon tack long to extend its range as much as possible. No stock for better mobility and handling, and the sleight of hand perk for faster reload since you will be reloading quite often. Alternatively, you can replace this with the RTC laser 1mW for tighter hipfire spread. For a more versatile build, you can use the MIP strike stock instead. With this, you get extremely good BSA, being in line with a lot of the assault rifles. You also have less recoil and hit flinch, allowing you to take mid-range fights. This comes at the cost of slower mobility and handling, but it is still relatively fast. And that covers everything there is to know about the QQ9. While it is quite nice to see that we have more options in the meta, I'm also somewhat concerned with the way they're handling it. The current time to kill is already extremely fast, and the buffed QQ9 kills faster than most of them. Personally, I would prefer if they went the opposite direction, making the average time to kill slower instead. In the meantime, I will be abusing this as my default close quarters SMG as I grind my way to legendary. But that's just my experience from using the weapon. So what do you guys think about the QQ9? Do you think you'll be swapping over to this weapon, or will you be sticking to the VMP? Be sure to let me know in the comments. And if you found the video helpful, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. But until then, I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye bye.